Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes. I'm your host, Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the business of their dreams. My guest today is Peter Lang. He's the co-founder and chief M&A officer at Ava, where he's leading the charge in acquiring and scaling digital agencies. Spent 15 plus years starting, building, and selling companies, and now helps entrepreneurs use M&A as a growth superpower. Super happy to have you here, and I know I shortened the heck out of your bio, so we'll dig into what we missed.
We had to shorten it. This is going to be a quick and efficient podcast, and my bio takes most of it up.
So let's back up, man. I want to hear your first foray into an acquisition. What was that like for you that got you so charged up that you said the rest of my career is going to be all about M&A?
So I did a deal in 7 days, which I don't recommend it. BBMD, the owner who had bought it from Barbara Brown Branding and Design, committed suicide. And the business reverted up to his 82-year-old parents. And the accounting firm that they worked with was my accounting firm as well. And so Al Martino gives me a phone call and says, I know you're acquisitive. I know you've been doing some things in the space. If you don't jump in on this, everything's just going to go away. Team's going to leave, clients would leave. And so I hopped on a call on a Thursday with the mom and dad, hard call, and told them about what I had, asked them what they knew. They didn't know much. They had a managing director who was there day to day. So I called her. She was frazzled, and I spent every day working on it. It had an office. It was more traditional advertising and design and creative. We were fully remote and digital, and did a deal in 7 days. But in that one deal, I added a year's worth of revenue. So what we had in revenue, I added in 7 days. I also added working capital to the business because I had a cash position. Also added great clients, great community, great domain with backlinks. It's been around for 39 years. And some team member types that we did not have that we were actively looking for anyway. I thought, wow, I spend so much time solving sales problems, trying to grow the agency organically, the slow way, and I just doubled it in 7 days. Can I do that again? If I only did this, which is called inorganic growth, can I contribute more to the business than I could as a super involved CEO leader? And that was the case. I did another deal in November. I did another deal in February. Not a great deal, but a deal. COVID hit. And then I did 3 deals 90 days after I hosted a town hall to our 60 team members globally and said, I know this is COVID. I know it's crazy, but the number one response to turbulent times, strategic growth and investment, I'm going to go out and try to get as many M&A deals done to reinforce us, add more value to our clients. And so I sat in front of a Zoom taking 7 calls a day with new owners of agencies, letting my beard grow. And I got 3 deals done in 90 days. And it just changed the paradigm shift, solve every business problem with M&A, or at least approach it from that perspective. And it's transformative.
So prior to acquiring BBMD, was that even on your radar? Like if this accountant hadn't contacted you, you'd still be slogging through new growth.
No, I have this problem, which is I was obsessed with M&A since high school. So I studied international business and corporate finance. The reason why I became an accidental agency owner was I had a blog in 2008, 2009, 2010. I was a geek. I mean, my first website was a Dragon Ball Z website, power website in the mid 90s. I built my computer. So I was a tech kid, but I was going towards business. And my aunt runs the travel writer conference in San Francisco. And she said, well, how do you get all this traffic to your website? And I was like, I have a blog. And they're like, what's a blog? And I said, well, you write content and people come and they can find it because it creates things that people are searching for. And so they said, well, can you teach us how to do that? So I was speaking. I was talking about using Twitter in the early days, and everyone's like, I have to post pictures of my food and say what I'm doing today. It was like the early days of personal branding, social media. And it turned from me saying, here's what I'm doing and talking about it, to people asking me to do it for them, helping them with it. And that's how I became an agency owner. It just turned into a natural progression. I had a business partner, and my soon to be later wife was also joined the agency, and we grew from there. None of us had agency experience. We all were straight out of university in business fraternity, and just learned agency business from tapping into the industry in general, people who are teaching it, mentoring, coaching, learning sales, all the bits that everyone does in the early days. But we looked at M&A as something we always wanted to get into, but you need to have enough experience to really be productive in it. And so we wanted to do our work and work with clients. And what we found was a good precedent that agencies did M&A, which is the case. The world's largest advertising business is WPP. It's made up from Sir Martin Sorrell's a deal every fortnight. When he created it, he was doing a transaction every 2 weeks. It was covered very nicely in Strategy Stick, a McKinsey publication. And we knew like the agency was just like our foothold into this next thing that we could potentially be doing. And again, it led to that. But I had that destination in mind since early on, even before I knew how to get there.
Okay, so it wasn't an if, it was a when that first acquisition was going to happen, and that snowballed to so many others. So since then, you've vetted and interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of agency owners who all think they've built something massive that they want to sell, or something super valuable that they want to sell. Talk about what some of those like biggest misconceptions that owners have about wanting to sell their business.
Well, it's an important distinction. So my company's Lang Acquisitions. Lang Acquisitions has a portfolio of assets. One of those assets is Ava, Agency Ventures Aggregator. Ava owns a business called Top Right Partners as our primary asset. We bought that in 2022, which is around $3 million to EBITDA. And so in order to gain perspective, like M&A is the most transformative professional development tool in existence. Like if you think your career develops every time you're at a certain business and working in a job, imagine if you could have 10 jobs in 1 year and learn from that and extract value. Just the level of uptick that you gain in perspective, experience, knowledge is just considerable. So I've evaluated over 3,000 businesses. I've done detailed due diligence on over 100 agency assets. Most of my assets are in the lower middle market, kind of Main Street. So let's call it 500,000 in profit to about 5 million in EBITDA. And the neat thing about that is there's nothing that an agency does that is unique. Just like business, most service businesses are reinventing the wheel and just trying to do it with their own lens and approach, depending on their perspective and their career. Most of it is already written on how to do it. They just don't know where to go to get it, or they haven't put in enough time to earn it. And so at the end of the day, business in itself is very predictable, and M&A helps kind of reveal that. It's also the number one R&D tool. So if you're an agency owner and you're 2 million in revenue and you've never knew what it's like to be 2 million in profit, well, they're listed for sale on the line. You can actually get the data room. You can get the SIM. You can actually raise money, maybe buy them. So you can actually accelerate. You could buy partial access to knowledge. You could buy part of a business and be mentored by that transitioning founder. There's just so many things that it accelerates for people versus the startup, versus I'm launching something from scratch. And I'm against starting stuff from scratch, Steve. I'm not a fan.
Interesting. So not into starting stuff from scratch, and kind of not fully out of line, but like you're super into like the endurance athlete mindset and training and things like that. And to me, that's like you're starting, everything is from you, from within, with nothing from the outside. So it kind of seems a little contrary from a business versus personal standpoint.
I'm just very competitive. So athletics is an expression of
I love that.
competitiveness. Um, but I approach athletics with, if I'm going to participate in the Olympics and I'm going to do the 100-meter dash, I know plus or minus what I need to run, whether or not people are breaking world records currently, where the fitness is at, where the science is at. And then I can deconstruct the training program for many, many years to get to a certain level of performance expectation on the day. Whether or not I can perform on that day, Christian Blumenfeld in the Paris Olympics is a great example of that, the Norwegian method, and then being unsuccessful at being able to claim the gold medal again, even though they worked really hard, doesn't mean it always happens. Luck is a factor, timing's a factor, but you still can break everything down to its smallest component parts to be prepared. And the same thing goes with ventures, same thing with sport. So most of my athletics is tailored around racing, so events, and then I just deconstruct workout blocks to get to that race. And then build everything around that. So, and I approach business the same way. So my calendar is, I've always had an assistant since when I got an assistant in 2020 is when I finally said yes to a true assistant. I've kept an assistant, even though I've sold businesses that they worked with me on. Although we're divesting our final asset in Ava, then winding down Ava and launching the new project. My assistant, I always have an assistant now. Because again, I need someone to help me incrementally manage my time allocation based on the plan that I have and the commitments I've made.
So they're not just a task taker. They understand what your vision and strategy are, and they help you allocate how you shouldn't do more than X amount of whatever agency vetting meetings or podcast interviews, or how you allocate your time throughout the week.
Yep, and then they do your administrative retrospective. So Peter Drucker, the creator of management consulting, had a great resource for founders called The Effective Executive. And the Effective Executive at its core is just about understanding how your time is being spent. And so most people don't understand where their time is being spent. And so I've approached my whole professional life and even my personal life with that same level of examination and review. I'm non-operator in any of my assets today. So I sit as a non-exec board member of almost everything that I own, except for the training program that is the next version attached to the book, and everything we're launching on that side, which does feel like a startup, I will say. But ultimately, I believe in partnering with people who want to be the CEO, who want to drive growth, and then putting together assets that do it. I mean, another one of my primary assets is Growth Hackers. I bought Growth Hackers a year and a half ago. It's the world's largest growth community. Sean Ellis founded it when he wrote the book on growth, Hacking Growth. We have a significant newsletter, 64,000, open up daily to our emails. And then we have a 20,000 person membership site. And then I did an acquisition into Growth Hackers after I bought it, add service capability, bring in our chief strategy officer. And I think all agency owners become at some point capital allocators, and usually they don't know it yet, but they're really well equipped to become private equity types. And there's great precedent for it. So I think it's all just a natural progression of people who are entrepreneurial, who like to impact growth, who like to build teams, who care about technology and the early stages of the bell curve, and then ultimately get to certain levels of financial capability to execute that influence over more assets, more businesses. And so that's kind of where I'm framing towards, like my Gandalf years, Steve, as my beard grows longer and gets more gray.
Long way to go for that, my friend. So thinking back to kind of what agencies, what you're looking for when you're evaluating agencies, other than the numbers or beyond the numbers, what are some of those things that you look for?
So in general, and this goes for me, because I follow best practices and I believe in them, it's talent first. So yes, AI is going to play a critical role moving forward as an AI first foundation to how we do aggregation and how we invest in businesses. But nothing still beats talent and great clients. So you're usually looking for who's got the best people, what percentage of the employee count and team count are made up with the best people. Then you look at the client types and the relationship. So you can typically see Clients that stay with business for a long time. So LTV, lifetime value, is a great predictor of longevity, service, and then team. So well compensated appropriately for their market, and they've been with the company for many years and have a progression in their role. That's some of the early things we look at. The other one is, do they predict the future and action on it? So a lot of businesses don't operate off of budgets and actuals. And so, they can't predict their own future. And so when you're selling something, and I'm the buyer, I'm paying you for something that's going to create value for me. And so you have to be able to project into the future, set an expectation that I need to realize that. If you can't do that, I don't care how big you are. If you're 100,000 a year or 100 million a year, you can't predict your future. It's very hard for someone to really appreciate and get value from it. So those are some of the core bits. I built an agency audit. It's pretty detailed. You can't buy something that's not culturally aligned with you. At the end of the day, you have to share core values. The 70% of M&A fails because of misalignment in core values. The people who are the deal makers and the deal sponsors don't spend enough time on due diligence and integration planning and cultural alignment and cultural fit. They just look at the numbers. And so how I've been able to circumvent that is you pay attention to the people. I mean, our assets, Steve, in the space, they leave on Friday, but not even leave. They log off on Friday. They log back on Monday, and you just hope that everybody shows back up. No one's bind to their jobs. No one's locked into desks. So, and then clients, how sticky are the clients? Quality of the revenues. I put a disproportionate amount of energy into monthly recurring revenue. Of course, it's a stronger quality of revenue, and then terms, so contracts, so how long them are guaranteed for securely. And those are the type of trappings that good businesses who grow and hit the next thresholds of opportunity, they all have those. They also have outside advisors. So the number one predictor of pushing through various ceilings of growth is you work with board advisors, strategic advisors who've been there, who help you get there. And then outsourcing or having someone who does full-time sales, who's not the founder. Anyone who says founder-led sales, and there's plenty who do, founders can still do sales. They just need to have other people doing sales too, because the founder gets pulled in when the lawsuit happens, when the employee quits, who's a key person. So you shouldn't have business drive, have the ability to be distracted and deprioritized. And so those are the predictors.
I'm glad that you mentioned that last part, but there's a lot of parts that are pretty vital. One thing you kind of glossed over, and I'm curious how you're seeing the impact of this, but AI. So talent is vital. It's one of the key indicators. Talent's being impacted by AI. Pipeline, revenue, everything's being impacted by AI.
Yep.
So how is that affecting how you're evaluating agencies for, like, whether they're not just valid for an acquisition, but at what validity they are?
As of July 2025, AI is hurting entry level more so than anything else to start. So what we used to have entry level and develop young talent, you're having AI do. So it actually doesn't really bode well for an industry when you stop investing in young talent. They'll have to go elsewhere, and we'll have less development there. When I define talent, an A player is someone who's done the job you're asking them to do for someone else, and they're doing it for you. That's like the number one qualifier of an A player. Now there's cultural aspects, fit, personality, core values. There's a bunch of additional components to it. But then when I talk about A players in AI, I'm talking about the $225,000 a year client service lead. I'm talking about people who have done it for other agencies, who are career people who can then do the same thing for you. And if you're an accidental agency owner and all of this from scratch and reinventing the wheel, you want to be the dumbest person in the room. You rather pay people who have done it before to do it for you, period. And that's not how a lot of agencies are set up. They hire people who they have to train, who are not as good as them, and then they develop young talent. If you then expand a business model to the talent progression, you're going to spend a decade being small because those people are going to leave you because you're still not big enough to then maximize how fast they got better. So again, the formula is just not really well known, although it's extremely defined. And that's just normal with entrepreneurship, especially in professional services or low barrier to entry. Now, in regards to AI, no one can tell me what AI looks like 3 years out. But I'm a firm believer that just like the internet, ad agencies, technology companies, which were MSPs, service providers, and then digital agencies, they were the stewards and the deliverers of tools to the market. Was what I mean by that. Well, if before the web came on and everyone had a website, an agency went to the pizza shop and said, "You need a website." I need a website. We're talking about running the phone book of this. So they pushed the market around them to leverage the technology to improve their businesses. They did that with the internet. They did that with web. They did that with social. And they did that with mobile. And then they're going to continue to do that with the new variations of social. And then they now do that with AI. And so a lot of the digital agencies are really, you're not going to be around unless you don't service the market in an AI capacity. That's not just your fulfillment. That's just not you using AI to be efficient in delivery of value. You have to teach your clients how to use it. And all agencies get timid by that because they think they're going to be replaced if they teach their clients how to do something. But your job as an agency typically is to help the client do something that makes that brand better. And they need you, because you're at the forefront, to help them do that. And so there's still a good place for the next 5 years because there's established economic systems to support it. And then, of course, I live in Austin, Texas. We have robo-taxi, Waymo. We're going to have robots walking around. Like, the future seems like it's today. That's not the case in the mountain towns I'm in as I'm training for my long distance altitude. Like, it's just, there's a different pace of adoption depending on where you are. And so we have some time. But yeah, unless you're thinking about AI, if you're not doing it today, you're hesitant, I predict you're not going to be around in 2027. I'm confident to take that position. It's just moving too quickly and you won't be able to compete.
Yeah, agreed. So thinking about like when I sold my agency, I spent 2 years learning how to be an employee. And I don't know that that's terribly uncommon, but I'm curious like how you help founders see the upside of joining a larger holding company without feeling like they're giving up control or this is my baby or, all that kind of emotional part of selling an agency.
Yeah, I call it professional maturity, right? A business is not a baby. At the end of the day, it might be paying for livelihood. You might be giving it your all, but it's not a baby. Let's not dramatize it, professionals, right? At the end of the day, it's a business. You're allocating your life, your time to it. Whether or not you're getting a decent return on that investment, if you're small and you're beyond 6 years, probably not. Most entrepreneurs aren't entrepreneurs. Let's be clear. They're individuals who have a certain experience or a certain life situation where running a small business gives them what they need, given those environmental constraints. The vast majority of entrepreneurs, I'll state this kind of loosely and a little recklessly, if you're less than $1 million of revenue and you've been doing it for 4 years, you probably are an employee who's just running loose. Like you're not an entrepreneur. You're a contractor or glorified contractor. You're just freelancing with a little bit extra. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then there are also, you talk about loss of control. Well, again, that's where core values come in, strategic fit. If who buys you does align with you, that's less of an impediment. If they also pay you for that burdened emotions and experience, that's another reason. At the end of the day, you do work for whoever pays you. You just happen to work for 20 clients, 50 clients, 100 clients. You still work for someone. You still aren't in control. You just think you are, but whoever pays you controls you. And so you're just changing who you're serving. You're serving a new master, but hopefully you got value for it. And again, if someone writes you a decent enough check, I'm for that earn out and being an employee and making it work, right? That's the sacrifice.
Yeah, everybody's got a boss. That's for sure.
Yes.
All right, a couple of quick rapid fires to wrap up. This is super helpful, very insightful from like the M&A standpoint for agencies, because a lot of agency owners are thinking about it, talking about it. I don't know if they're executing on it. Certainly not, on the level you are. And so I love that. But there's a lot of conversation about it, and I want there to be more conversation about it. So the first is, what's the most unusual thing that you've ever done to celebrate closing a deal?
Unusual thing? I mean, most of the ways I celebrate pretty normal. I mean, I signed up for a race. Most people don't do that. So I was like, oh, yeah, it's endorphin high. So for me, I think next challenge. So I signed up for a race. That was unusual. No, most of my stuff's pretty standard, Steve. I celebrate normally. Pop a bottle, get a gift, put a mantle of the deal. Like, there's traditional things that you do.
Gotcha. Awesome. Which endurance race taught you the biggest life lesson, and what was it?
It was my first 70.3. So my first half Ironman. I went from not being able to swim one length of the pool, so 25 meters, without stopping. So I stood up in the middle of the pool, to a 1.2 mile open water swim 4 months later. And I didn't like it at all, but I still did it. And so most endurance is to a degree of doing something you don't want to do. But that first one, when I got out of the water and I didn't die after, so like I was going to die in an open water swim, I mean, that gave me a different level of grit, a different level of relationship with challenges. It made me very confident to continue to do that as a demonstration to my family and to my daughters and to the people who look up to me as a mentor.
I love that. Super admirable. And then finally, if you could acquire any company in history just for fun, which one would it be and why?
Emakina.
What is that?
So Emakina was founded by a Frenchman, the group. So they formed a agency group, and they were publicly traded on the London Stock Exchange. I was obsessed about them. I studied all their annual reports, all their disclosures, all their deals, all before I did my deals. And so like part of it would just be like going and buying them. They were purchased by EPM and delisted. They were taken private. And like I had in my mind this aspiration that I'd get to a certain point and I'd buy them, but I can't buy them now, unfortunately.
Interesting. Cool. Well, Peter, I appreciate your time. Folks, check out digitalagencybusiness.com. Peter's coaching people about M&A and how they can get into it. And there's a digital courses and a book coming soon. By the time this drops, maybe the book's out. We'll see. So, Peter, thank you so much for joining me. I really am grateful for your time and your experience.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.